Hi there. Here I'm recording a video of an example of play, a whole complete game of Napoleon at Austerlitz. Um, just a quick question: has anyone watching this tried recording a video directly with the YouTube video recorder? Because I've tried that a couple of times, and through my phone, the sound quality is awful. I just have to bin those ones. So I just wonder if anyone else has better luck with that. Maybe there's some adjustments I can do. Otherwise, because that would just save me having to do the uploading to YouTube. Okay, so you can see every unit on the board, although you can't see the whole of the board just about. There's Davout has come on here, and there's two of his units there. You can just see a corner of the unit, and similarly up here that is the extent of Bagration's column, so you're not missing any units. We're just very tight in the scheme. There's been some losses. So 5 units lost of the French and 4 lost of the Allies. We're on the 6th game turn, about to start. That's 11 a.m. So Davout has been on for an hour. So he's looking at the situation. The French are actually not in a very good position. I wonder if I've made some terrible strategic mistakes, but Davout's not as strong as I thought he might be compared to other games that I've seen him represented. Compared to what he's facing, the first column of the Allies with Duktorov, they essentially swung round to take Telnitz here, and the advance guard, along with the first with some units of first column, are taking Sokolnitz, and they've also got Sokolnitz Castle just now. So Legrand has just exited the peasantry, and they had a unit of infantry from Sokolnitz here, and his infantry have all gone. So he's just got some cavalry. So he's got some of his. He's got about 6 strength points of infantry left there. So they're essentially out of his command, but they're sort of joining the line of Davout there. Now that's very important, because just off the map here is Davout's entry. That's 15 victory points for the Allies. The French get no victory points for geographical objectives. So the Allies, they get there's 3 here. I think they got, I can't remember the exact figures, but they got 60 victory points for what they have here already, and with a sort of roughly equal parity in victory points for losses. The French are not doing well at all. They're going to have to be up about 10 average units over against the Allies. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that they're going to have destroy 10 more Allied units, very approximately, than the Allies have destroyed of theirs, to just equal the victory point gains there, or push them out. This might be a possibility. Murat was charging up here and had a bit of a tussle with Liechtenstein's cavalry. Didn't come off as well. That was my first cavalry charge in the system, and Murat's cavalry again. They're weaker than I thought they might be in comparison. They don't have as many strength points. Good morale there. So anyway, they retreated back, and they're whizzing around here to help. To come in on the flank of the Allies' second column here, to help Legrand and Davout. Then Saint-Hilaire is right up here in on it, because it took me a while, but I noticed that the third column has a morale of 3, all or most of their units, which is the lowest in the game. The other columns have morales of 4 on the Allied side. The French generally have a morale of 5. Oh, except for the Grenadiers have 5s and 6s. And The French are generally 5, and then some 6s for the Guards, and Oudinot's division. That is important because it doesn't just help you to recover from disruption quickly, but you also add morale differential into not the differential, sorry, you subtract 4 from the morale and then you add that to your firing, so it assists in fire, and then the differential between the combatants' morale is a column shift in the melee table. So what with the third column having the lowest morale, they're the best target to wipe out. And so St. Hilaire, originally I'd had him on a kind of like a holding action around Puntowitz. He's moved up. He's disputing the Pratzev town, and he's heading out for the third column there. So he's assisted by Bessieres and the Guard, who are on his flank here, and also helping remove. It's very difficult to get units out of villages or towns because of their defensive modifiers. Colorat's fourth column is advancing here, very uniform, 6 strength, 4 morale, but quite small. So they're going to try and either flank Bessieres or try and flank a fourth corps under Van Damme, who've moved up against the fourth column. Fourth column supported by Constantin's reserve, which is met by Oudinot in answer. And over here, Lannes has pulled back, and Bernadotte likewise, to form a line here. They had originally moved forward to meet Bagration, but it's decided they're going to fall back on the Santon Height and more or less the river line here as a defensive position, so to hold Bagration, who does have a lot of strength points in his units. It would take a long time to bear them down, so the idea is to hold them, destroy them, and then these ones here, so hold the Guard, Bagration, and maybe we can regain some ground here as the French. For the Allies, the plan is really to carry on what they're doing. Bagration wants to, ideally he wants to break through, but he's not going to be able to, so they're going to be pinning each other over here. The Guards really want to make a breakthrough to assist the units around here, threaten the flank, and so destabilise the French centre. They essentially don't really have a hope of moving all the way over here. There's victory points off your vision here and here. That's not really going to happen in this, as the battle is playing out now. But so they want to save themselves. They do not want to get destroyed. So the Guard are going to be kind of crucial in that. If seeing as Bagration's pinning this lot, the Guard have a chance to help balance out the combat here. And so over here, the first and second column essentially have to finish off Legrand's division and meet Davout, stop him making any gains, and possibly even pushing back and taking the supply route that over there. So that's the situation. We start with the Allies always start first, and we start with a rally phase. So we'll quickly whiz through looking for who's rallied, who needs rallying. Now, normally you just flip the units to rally, and it's interesting, it doesn't adjust, disruption doesn't adjust their morale at all or anything like that. So let's try and show you, just to get you a little bit of a picture of what the units look like. So that's a 6 strength points, 4 morale, and 4th column, respectively, top to bottom. So when they are disrupted, they look like that, which is, at first glance at the map, can be kind of hard to see with these ones. The French are paler on the back. This is actually a leader. They don't get disrupted, but their substitute, you can see it's a paler colour. But we do have a few disrupted counters to sort of highlight who is disrupted. So we got that unit's got 4 morale, so he just needs to roll 4 under on a d6. He rolled a 5, so he stays disrupted, no combat, and if he's attacked, woe betide him. Who else? And that is it on the Allied side, which tells you a bit of a story about how the battle's going. So then we go to the movement. It might be wise for Bagration to hold off. So I think he's going to take up positions on the Bosenitz village there. Let me just zoom in so it's a bit more interesting for you. A bit. So one thing I have this map is Joe Hughes from 1993. He's learnt a lot of graphics have got a lot better, but one thing is I think they're better at it now, but when you have terrain depictions like villages are very important, you can't see them. It's a nice graphic, but you can't see it when the counter's on it. So I think it's good if you also kind of highlight subtly the hex. Difficult to do maybe in the olden days when you want to retain what the surrounding terrain is and the village, and also highlight that it is a whole hex is a village hex. But anyway, so I'm moving up through the woods. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's very weak units. We'll keep. I know we'll put him in the village. So we have 10 strength points in Rosenitz there. And then the artillery over streams, it costs them 2, so that's all their 3 movement points there. We're probably going to have an artillery duel at 4 hexes range here. I'm not sure. No, I'm going to keep them out of range of the guns. So Bagration has basically gone into a holding pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. So keeping his cavalry out of range, and retaining some infantry behind the hill there. So that will be interesting what the French do in response to that, if they will move back up again trying to dislodge them. So here the guard. Here's the Constantine's guard here. They need to move their artillery up to have some effect. They'll simply turn that one there. They don't want it to be easily meleeed. Zones of control are very sticky. This unit could slide into there if it's in command and given a commitment. But he's going to have to meet a fair bit there. Constantine moves up there. 1, 2, 3. We'll bring him in. So he's got most of his men committed. He has no cavalry. Which side I think they did have cavalry, didn't he? Constantine did have cavalry. I seem to remember from other games on the subject. I'm not totally sure about that. So Miloratz, I can't remember his name, Milo, according to the counter, is being heavily attacked, but he's also got quite good strength and he's behind a stream. So he's going to stay where he is. And okay, what he'll send out. Hang on, you have to be careful of stacking all the way through, so you can't move through another unit. So 1, 2, 3. He wants to send someone round there, but this fellow underneath him is a bit weaker. Oh well, so be it. That one will stay there. 1, 2, 3, 4 through the vineyards here. Okay. Okay, I'll keep a Redvich there. Then Colorat's fellows will have to meet the attack on them here. Not going to go on aggressively, but I'll keep this other fellow back up here because he's got a ridge which will be a nice defensive point, and then withdraw this fellow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to there, and now this is cavalry. As always, a bit fragile. Really, perhaps he should come back to. Yeah, so 1, 2. So he's in. He can do that, no worries. You need a command to move from zone of control to zone of control, but moving out is not a problem. Now this fellow is in difficulty, but I don't think the cavalry on their own can assist them, and Collarats is not providing much help. The idea is to kind of draw the French up, and then they can be attacked on their flank with cavalry assistance. But however, they have broken through here, eliminated an artillery unit, I believe it was there, so that has to be met, and Probowitz has isolated himself from the rest of his men here, a bit unfortunately. Let me move the camera up so you get an even better view, I hope. Okay. I think it's good to get an overall view of the combat as well as this more close-up view. Because I'm chatting, this will go a bit slower than otherwise, but I think that might be necessary for you. So he can slide over to here, move from zone of control to zone of control, because this fellow's in command. None others of Probowitz's are in command, so they could not move into contact. This fellow, you have A zones of controls to the front and B zones of controls to the rear. So you can move through B zones of control without... No, you still need command. But you don't have to end your move by doing that. You have to... Oh no, there's no zone of control to no zone of control in A. So you could slide around with the B one, but not through A. So he is stuck there. He just has to withdraw. That is bad. He's isolated from the rest of his command. I think I'm going to put him over the stream there, moving out. But no, his rear is assailed there. Not a good situation. It looks like the French are going to get what they want, the destruction of Prebowitz's column. Now he could move out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so leave this one. And one could move out there to join him. I think we shall do that. So he's going to move in. Those will move in there, and then this fellow, because that he's in command. Oh, actually, he's in command. He could retreat. He's only got 2 strength left, so he's. In fact, he could retreat even out of command. 1, 2. 3. Okay, it's not going to last long, but he'll hold the flank, hopefully enough time for these to join up. So, and he can't engage because he's not in command, but he can move there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thankfully, leaders don't have the risk of leader loss in combat, which can be a bit, it's maybe a good thing in some ways in tactical games, but in others it can be a terrible bane in that, an unlucky roll and you lose a crucial part of your force and everything falls apart just because of that. And this, leaders are lost if they're on their own and fired upon or moved on to, but otherwise they are safe. Okay, so these fellows are going to remain as they are. And then over here, this is difficult with Murat coming over there with all those cavalry thundering. Are they going this way or that way? No one knows at the moment. So Langeron says, right, second column, we've obtained victory. We've obtained an objective here. Hold the objective. Form defensive. It's a shame because he wants to take out those and devour the rest of Legrand's division, but saved by the cavalry. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Now that's a frozen lake, frozen pond. It can. Infantry and artillery, cavalry cannot go on. Infantry and artillery can go on it, but they might get disrupted in a roll of 1 or 2. And fire combat against them. If artillery fires on them, it's very effective. Because the cavalry can't go over it, that flank is kind of protected for now. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so Langeron's doing this. And he's going to send his cavalry in here because cavalry will, in the combat results table, if you have a cavalry unit adjacent to a unit that infantry are firing at, you get +2, +1. Simulate that the infantry have gone into a square and therefore easier to be fired upon with effect. Okay, so here these Austrians. Okay, some here. These are going to. That's just to remind me of victory point areas. I'll move that out of the way. They're going to press on here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And then he can have 3 because he's got leadership with 3. 3 of his units can go into enemy zones of control, so that's all of those 3, and those are his too. So that's quite neatly organised there. These are holding their gains just in case. Also nice to have some reserves. So Doktorov has range of 2 and a can commit 2 units, and that will be these 2 against here. So 1, 2 going over the stream, another one there. They're now out of command. That's okay, and the rest, I think, are going to form up defensively along the river, and he will move into Telnitz. And this artillery was going around there, so yes, 1, 2, 3, they'll keep going, so they're ready to blast away through there. So that's all the movement. So now we go to defensive fire from the opponent. So the French fellows here have 9 strength points, their morale 4, so that's no modifier there, no modifier for stream for fire. So we choose who they're firing at. You can't split your fire. Well, the 2 units could fire at different ones, but choose to take them all together. So what did they say? 9 points versus them. And I rolled a 10, which on the face of it is 2 hits and no modifiers. That's great. And at the same time I roll the morale saving if there's any, which was a 2. So on 2 hits you have to roll for morale. So they saved that. They're not disrupted, but they do take 2 from their 9 strength points. Okay, then it's only adjacent units. So if you have artillery in this, they can't do ranged fire and defensive fire. These are cavalry, so they don't get any defensive fire. I noticed someone on Web Grognards had posted a errata whereby, or a variant whereby cavalry cannot retreat before combat in that sense, which would kind of make sense, but I'm just sticking with the basic rules as they are for now. So we got 4 strength points of infantry there, and they're going to choose to go against the cavalry because they want to come out of their squares. Oh, I rolled a 12. So what's 12 on 4? Because 4 strength was not. So that's 2 hits, yes. And I rolled a 4 for the morale. So unfortunately, the cavalry retained their morale. So it would have been a bit lucky if they'd disrupted the cavalry. But they have their strength. There's another interesting thing in this series. Even if you're less than half strength, say, your morale always stays the same. So you might have originally 9 strength units down to 1 strength point. It still has maybe 6 morale. It's just the way it is. Okay. So here they are cavalry. So they get no defensive fire. Over here, no adjacencies. There's an adjacency here. He's got 5. He rolls a 9. Oh, the 5 is a 1. So that fellow's, and that's no problem for morale with just a 1 hit. So that's from 7 strength points down to 8 strength points down to 7. So I want to make sure I keep you in shot, whilst also not staying at long range all the time. So we're here. Oh, that's 10 strength points. That's a lot. And I rolled an 11. Wow. So that's 2. Most you get, you only start getting more than 2 hits. If I'd rolled a 12, that would have been 3 hits. You can even go up to maximum 6 hits if you have 25 strength points and you roll a 12. Look at that. Okay, so what was it? 2. And when you're firing, if you're firing against a stack, you can choose which unit to fire against. So, for example, you might choose to fire at the artillery rather than the infantry in the stack or some such. And the morale roll is 3, so he makes that, no probs. Then we've also got artillery there, so 6 strength points for the canister fire at the top on the left, and 4 strength points for the ball fire. So at 2 hex range, that would be 4 strength points. 3 hexes, it would be half that, fractions rounded up, and 4 hexes half whatever its strength is, fractions rounded down. Now, because that artillery is halved its strength, it's got half that firepower, so that's only 3 plus 8, so we're on 11. I roll an 8. That's high rolls, isn't it? Well, you should have seen the last turn. That's 1 hit, which is unfortunate because the rally roll would have broken him. Anyway, so I roll 3 dice, 2 for the combat result and 1 for any possible rally, just to save me having to make 2 rolls. It just seems a sensible solution to inordinate die rolling. I learnt that from ASL, where you roll several die at a time and different coloured ones will show you the results of any possible extra excitement that comes about of certain rolls according to that system. So we have 4 strength points now here. I think they're going to combine, so we've got 11 strength points there. They're not in any defensive terrain. Rolled a 7. Just 1 hit. That unit has been taking a beating. It's down 3 strength points from original 7. That Grenadier Guard unit. This one has 9 strength points. Oh, and I rolled a 2, so that's nothing. And so none there. So now the offensive fire. So we have this guard of 8. I rolled an 8. So that's 1 strength point loss for this fellow. This is going to be a bit boring for you, isn't it? I think I'll come back after I roll it for all of the fire for the allies. We have an interesting result here in that these units are all stacked together. They've lost 2 hits from the combined attack here, but because their morale is 5 and they have their lead with them, even though they rolled a 6, there's no way that they fail their morale check, because there's no automatic loss, automatic fail. So that's they're probably going to be meleeed by that cavalry after. Okay, and over here we have combined cavalry joining in, so combined 13 with +1, and I rolled a 3, goes up to 4, and that's nothing. So you can see with a 2d6 roll you can get quite a big spread of results. So even with a high, even on 25, if you roll a 2 and there's no modifiers, 25 strength points firing, you inflict nothing. So here it's cavalry, so that's nothing, and then here we have flat 15 points, no modifier. If these fellows were separated by a hex and firing, you would get an enfilade bonus, but they're not. So we're on 8. On 15 is 2 hits, and I rolled 3 for morale, so that's okay. And only the top one took the hit. If he was disrupted, then the bottom one would then have to roll for morale too. But he's only got 3 strength points anyway, so he's down to 1. Okay, so that is that. Now we go to melee. So in this case, these cavalry will go against. You have to be careful because for melee you use the lowest morale. Oh, and all those Russians. I keep forgetting to add the morale, like to the French rolls. I should have added morale over. Anyway, the Russians generally not, because they're mostly 4 morale. Anyway, so because this is a lower morale cavalry unit, if he joined with them, he's going to bring the column shift down because he's 3 morale going against 4 morale. So I think we will keep these 2 will go against this fellow on the edge. So they have 5 strength points against 6. Okay, we may as well bring them all together. So then we're going to have 1-to-1. If it goes down 1 because of morale, we would have been there anyway. So it's the same. Because it's cavalry charge, you go up 1 column shift. So we're back to 1-to-1. And there's not a flank attack, so no different formations, etc. No terrain. So that is it. Just a shift from morale differential and cavalry charge. So we're on the 1-to-1 column, and I rolled a 7, and we get a attacker disrupted and defender fall back, which means he falls back, and there's no actual advance, but the attacker is disrupted. That was a terrible result, and that was a bad mistake. Because you get a 2 column shift and +2 on your die roll to attack. So when the French attack these back in their turn, they're going to do some severe damage to them. Where else have we got cavalry? So here there was a cavalry attack. We got 7 against 6. Again, that's 1-to-1. These 1-to-1 melees are not good news. I'm making a mistake doing them. I rolled an 11 now. So it's going to go up to 3 to 2 because of the cavalry charge. Morale differential is the same. There is no differential, so that results in a rout 2, which means he falls back 2 hexes disrupted, and cavalry has to pursue. Infantry can pursue. For every hex you pursue, he will take 2 losses. So cavalry pursue him 2 hexes to there, and he's going to take 2 losses because of that, bringing him down to 4 strength. Okay, did we have any other cover? No, that's it. So that is the Allied turn, and now we do the same for the French. And you don't need to see that, you get the idea how the game plays. I will just chip back in with any interesting tidbits that come up as I do it. One thing I had forgotten was the artillery here, and we've got 2 artillery units, strength 3 for ball, so at 2 hex range, that's 6 combined against these fellows in cobblnets, and they did 1 strength point of damage. They've been battering away for a while, so even with a -2 for the village, so artillery in time will destroy a unit if they can just unhamperedly knock away at them. So we see Davout's men falling back here from the stream, so they're not going to attack over the stream. His cavalry moving forwards with some infantry to try and push back those disrupted cavalry. Legrand's men of the 5th moving back round the frozen pond here, and Legrand himself with his cavalry disengaging all the way back here. Murat has boldly split his forces, so being in command he sent 2 straight in around the flank of Langeron there to hit this in a double cavalry attack. And the other part of his force, because the cavalry can't go over the frozen ponds, they're going to try and go round or into the rear of these fellows, providing some assistance to Sue's beleaguered unit there. Similarly, we have an interesting manoeuvre over here in that Bessary's guard has, instead of moving up here as they seem to be doing, they've swung round here, whereas St. Hilaire's division of the 4th Corps also swung around. So this leaves just 1 guard's cavalry unit here to sort of hold back the Colorats Austrians, which hopefully will give them enough time to do enough damage to the 1st column, the 3rd column there. Meanwhile here, yet another switch, and Napoleon standing here still. Lannes leaving some of his artillery infantry to assist 1st Division's holding off Bagration, and they essentially moved further back, but the rest of Lannes' 5th Division switching over here, coming around behind Oudinot's, that's Lannes' Corps, behind Oudinot's division. Are they going to come up here, or are they moving all the way over to the flank of the Austrians there? So that's the position of movement. I'll now go into the firing and melee. So here's the position at the end of Napoleon at Austerlitz. I finished the game on the 16th turn out of 18, essentially in an Allied victory, 185 victory points to the French 164. There was no point to continue another hour because what the Allies had essentially won by claiming victory points here, here, here and here. They had threatened victory points here, but as you can see weren't able to reach it. The French cordoned them off. The Allies' force was split in 2, so these built a strong defensive line around there, and then up here Bagration's advance column and the reserve column had formed a defensive line here. Now Bagration hardly ever got into the fight. There was an initial tussle with the 1st Corps. The 1st Corps drew back here and then reinforced by some of the 5th Corps but they stood off from each other the whole rest of the game. Essentially what happened was that the third column was completely eaten up by the French, and the fourth column routed off the map. They lost demoralisation, as did the French 4th Division. They were complete demoralised. Essentially, when that happens, you just have to retreat. You can't do any fighting. You just move back, and so I retreated them off the map, and also for the French. All the other, so there's 2 demoralised Allied formations and 1 French. So the French have kind of ended in a stronger position in terms of units, but they do not have enough time to take back the land which the Allies had. So essentially, I think what this would be called, it would be called a like a positional Allied victory, but the French are in a good position to fight the next day. One has to assume that this Allied force is cut off. The French hold the heights here, Allies are retreating here, and their main strength is left here. So you can imagine the battle the next day is that this Allied column would be again kept pinned at bay, and that all the rest of the French force would have a day to bear down on these cut off units. Otherwise they would have to retreat down there. I don't know if in the campaign the Allies had another column or 2, some more forces coming that could assist them. But either way, it wasn't the crushing French victory which one would have wanted for the French side. And so the Allies can be quite pleased. I was a bit surprised because I realised the position on a count up that there's the French victory points, 164, is all based on Allied losses. And the Allies inflicted 110 victory points in casualties on the French. So you can see in terms of losses, the French were well ahead. But the Allies gained 30, 40, 50, 60, 75 victory points in terms of control of areas there. So I think it's the way the game is designed in terms of victory points. It's nicely balanced in the sense that the French need to destroy this army, and the Allies, if they can gain some kind of positional advantage, can be considered to have without losing too many men, can be considered to have stymied the French in that goal, which is what my result was. So what about the system? I enjoyed it with one caveat, and it's a bit strange for me to say, but the defensive fire phase became a bit onerous. If you're having fighting all along the line throughout the whole map, you have to roll for fire for each combat on defensive fire, and then there might be morale rolls. I bundled them together with the same roll, and then you have to roll again for offensive fire, and maybe or melee. And what that meant was that each player turn you're doing 2 sets of rolls, so that's 4 sets of combat rolls every turn, which if you have a lot of units in contact and choosing to fight, it slows down. And so the mid game around turn 6, 7, 8, 9 was a bit slow for me, but then contact broke as the French had obviously made a breakthrough, and then because there's a lot less actual combat, the game really picked up pace again, and so I ended in a really nice way. But it's a bit funny because on the other hand, I like the defensive fire roll. It seems correct in that when an attacker moves into combat, you don't just get to roll for their attack. The defenders get a shot back, and at this level I think it works well. So as a mechanic it works really well. It's just will slow the game down a bit, And I guess that ultimately it could have been baked into one single roll, um, whereby both sides would get a loss in some losses. But when you're not, if that's not an odds based, and it's purely based on the strength, I don't know. Perhaps one could even roll 4 dice, 2 for each roll, 2 for the defence, 2 for the offence, and just collate the two. Just make a chart that says this is the defender's result, this is the attacker's result, and do them both together like that. In which case, the defender wouldn't get that benefit of being able to weaken the attacker before he gets his shot off. Maybe that again could be factored in there as like a -1 or a modifier to the attacker's roll, depending on the strength of the defender's roll. I don't know. I'd just like to see that kind of gel together a bit more, but without losing what it does. So this is the first game in the system that I played. I'm really glad to have played it, and it's great to add it to my series of Austerlitz games to compare and see how the battle works out. It's always great to play out a battle well that can and have quite divergent results. In this, it was extremely exciting in that we had Murat. He eventually saved Davout. Davout was going to be eliminated, and perhaps too much French strength was put over in this direction rather than taking on the marauding Allied columns there. However, it did mean that the French broke the Allied centre. They just didn't have the time to then swing around and engulf the Allied left. So, there was... we had sort of quite backs and forth, some units moving this way and then back the other way, and Murat was going around here and then he went around here, and so in manoeuvre wise it was a very exciting situation. You could see the French centre went up here and then they are coming back, and even with forced marches they just weren't getting enough distance of ground to cover. They pursued the Allies there, but in that pursuit that took them further from the support that was needed back here, and so hence they lost on those victories points gained over there. So it was great, and it certainly games quicker, for example, than the Gamers game. That's just on Austerlitz, but I find them in a class of their own because no other game has the orders system which they do, which is quite a wonderful thing to behold. For the Avalanche Press game I have, I can't remember what its name is. What is that? That's Austerlitz 1805. That's a smaller map and its areas. It games quicker, but I don't think it quite memory of my game that it didn't quite give the feel of the sweep and the grandeur of the combat that this one did. And Napoleon's Triumph, of course, is a whole nother ball game again. That gives you that also gives you a definite sense of this kind of the manoeuvre and momentum of forces on the battlefield. So I think out of my 4 Austerlitz games, this would come third, and be well deserved at that. It was an enjoyable romp and a nice system. The leader, the command system particularly, I found great. It would be nice to see that in some other games, because what you have is you will have, say, a corps with perhaps 6 units in it, and the leader might only be able to commit 2, 3 or maybe 4 of those at any one time. So that means that as they're moving into attack, if your leader can only commit 2, he only can commit 2 units into an enemy zone of control. Now the next turn he commit another 2, so he can eventually get his whole corps in to combat, but it's going to be slow doing it. Then you pit them against, like with the French leaders, much better. They can bring their greater force to bear much quicker than the Allies were able to at any one point. So a very simple device like that gave a lot of effect of the different qualities of the armies concerned. So for that, and also for the defensive fire, even though I prefer it sort of baked out in a different way, I recommend this game, if not this system. It's an oldie, but I think it's a goodie, and thank you very much, Chris, for sending this to me. It's been a delight. Ciao for now. So what's up next on my channel? Well, I'm going to play Ides of March, the End of the Roman Republic. It's a print and play game by John B. Farrer. I greatly enjoyed his game The Age of Bismarck, Unifications of Italy and Germany. Fog of War Publications. That came out 2 years ago, and I did record. It's a card-driven game, simple to play, and full of lots of flavour. And I did record a video or 2 of it, but for a very long, one of them was very long, and it got corrupted or something. It wouldn't never upload or something, so I had to abandon that. I could never do the coverage because I'd finished the game and moved on to other things. I will get back to that another time. This one I'm really looking forward to. Again, it's a card-driven game, a point-to-point map. Don't get turned off, some of you. Well, you know what you like, but you have generals cards and you have strategy cards, and it's essentially it's the end of the Roman Republic. Caesar has been assassinated. Brutus, Mark Antony and Octavian are representing 3 factions vying for the succession, as it were. But it's not only that, there's also so there's a 2-player variant, so it's normally a 3-player game. There's also the Rubicon module, which is it includes extra counters, extra cards, and that is playing out Caesar's rise to power, so his battle against the Senate. So that's, again, I think that's a 2-player game. So I will be playing all or one of those and showing some of it on camera for you guys. Now it'll take a while for me to get there because I printed these on sticky backed paper, but it'll take me a while to print them onto cards. I mean, to stick them onto cards and get them all cut out and so forth. I've also got to stick the counters and cut them. And I think I've cut the counters out already. So that will be up next. I think in between, while I'm doing that, I'll do a quick look at Dixie. Now Dixie, the Gettysburg version, I have Shiloh and Bull Run by them, but I only have I don't have the whole boxes, the whole cards. It was a collectible card game, but you could buy all the cards in one box for about, you still can, for about $60, I think. And it's a great little game, so I think I'll do a quick look at that while I'm preparing all this.